We've covered a few different patterns for getting data from our Firestore database. Now we want to cover how to dynamically add new data, update it, and delete it. So we're going to use the example that we had previously with our stream builder, and we're going to see how to create a new user dynamically, as well as update their data and then delete them. So first, let's create a function in our timeline state called create user. This is going to be an async function. It's going to be another async operation that we perform here, and we're going to add a new user to our users collection. So we'll take our users ref, and there's a couple of ways to add a document to a collection. We can use the add method, and add accepts a map of data. So we could add a set of curly braces and then specify all of the data that we know to be available on each of our user documents: username, post count, and isAdmin. So we'll just set username to whatever value you would like, post count say to 0, and isAdmin to maybe false. So this would work just fine. And note that we technically don't have to make this an async function. We could just write it like this in order to add our data. But if we wanted to get our data back, we could await this. We know that most of these operations return a future. So we do get back a future with a document reference. And this document reference is going to give us the ID that was created when this user is added to our database. Or another approach, if we want to add our own ID, our own unique identifier, is we can use the set method. So the approach to this, to doing it this way, is to first use the document method, and we can give it some unique string. In the future, we'll use a specific function for creating a unique string, and then we will chain on to this the set data method. And if we look at what set data returns, we see it returns a future of type void, so it doesn't give us any data back. So what we're going to do here is we'll just execute set data with our custom ID, and let's execute create user when our state is created. So now we can save timeline.dart, and when we head to our timeline, we see that our user document with the username of Jeff is added since it's displayed in our UI. And if we head back to our collection, we see our custom ID linked to our new user document with all the data that we specified. So the add method, or the document and set data methods, are the two different approaches that we're going to be using to create new data in Firestore. So we'll comment that out, our execution of create user, and instead let's create another function called update user. So to update a user, we want to reference a given user by their document. So say we wanted to update Jeff, we'd provide his ID to document, and then we'd use the method update data. Update data again returns a future of type void, so it doesn't give us any data back. And the document is going to be updated with whatever data that we supply on map. So say we wanted to update the username to a different value, say the name John. How would we do that? Well, we'd first provide the entire object that we had previously. We still want to provide post count and isAdmin is false. We could also change those values if we wanted to, but right now let's say we just wanted to change the username. We could change it to the value that we want, and just like we did for create user, we can call update user when our state is created. So when we navigate away and then back, we see Jeff is now John, and we can confirm that by heading back to the users collection and taking a look at his document. And finally, to delete data, we'll create a delete user function. And this is even easier to perform. We just have to reference a given document by its ID and then chain on the delete method. So we'll run this. within init state. As a result, our user is deleted, and the same is visible in our database. Now, one pattern that I'd recommend when it comes to updating a given user or deleting it is to first make sure that it exists. We don't want to execute update data or delete unless we're sure that we have a given document. So what we can do for both of these methods is use our async await pattern to fetch a given document that exists. So let's actually find the ID of an existing document and replace it for the ID of the document that we're getting. We want to get the document data itself, and we'll put it in a variable called doc. And remember, we have the property on the return document called exists, and make sure to call get at the end after the document method. We have this exists property where if it actually exists in our database, this is going to resolve to true, and only in that case do we want to delete it. And so when that resolves to true, we can update it by saying document.reference.update data, and we can pass in the map that we had before with our other user, and the same applies to delete user. We will query for it first with get and put it in our final doc variable that again is of type document snapshot, and only if it exists do we want to make that request. And that will be with doc.reference.delete. So let's first update our user. Update the user that is currently Bob to the username John. So Bob is now John, and then to delete him, we'll run delete user. And I made the mistake of not copying over the new ID for delete user. So let's try that again. And now John's gone. So now we have full CRUD functionality for our Firestore documents. We can create, read, update, and delete them.